Everyone, this is Majubin Baloch, and you're watching my YouTube channel Insani Ittihad, which aims to invoke a little bit of humanity in all of us. So, I had planned to make a video regarding the Amnesty International report in regards to Israel being a Jewish state as an apartheid. I wanted to make the video a week earlier, but since you can see the henna in my hand, so I had like two back-to-back weddings, so it was like 6-7 days of festivity, and I would highly recommend all of you to attend a Pakistani or Indian or even subcontinent and Bengali or Sri Lankan, the subcontinent wedding. It's such a big carnival sort of, and that carnival lasts for like a week or so. At least you would have four different functions and four different activities happening and going on. So it was a lot of fun, but I just didn't find the time to make a video and upload my opinion. And somebody actually commented on one of my videos, and I said that I will make tomorrow a video, but I was just heavily busy. You come from these carnival events and you're just tired and you have a headache and you don't know what to do. So my opinion, I think, is very much people can actually guess what I might think in regards to this, but I have always said quite openly that Israel is a Jewish state for the Jewish people. I do not oppose having a minority, a small minority in Israel. It's nothing wrong for having a minority, and one has to also remember that I'm a Pakistani, and I think Pakistan and Israel are the only two countries which were created by the same colonialist Britishers, but actually Israel was not created or was not given independence by the Britishers. Pakistan was. Pakistan and India were divided by the British, but British created Jordan out of the Palestine Mandate, but Britain did not have the guts, and I always say they didn't have the balls to create a Jewish nation for the Jewish people, despite the fact of the Shoah, the Holocaust, which happened. And it was largely so that Hitler and the Nazis were more obsessed and upset over the colonialist powers of French and British and Portuguese and whatnot, because they felt that because of the Jewish traders, they are, discriminating the Germanic people and whatnot and whatnot. But of course, Jews paid the price for the colonialist powers, French, Portuguese, and British, and every other colonialist powers. They did pay, although they didn't had any sovereignty or any power over or any influence over the imperialists. There to say, the imperialists hated the Jews, the monarchs hated the Jews, the communists hated the Jews, and the US, the very democratic, now all lovey-dovey with Israel, they even didn't very much liked or protected the Jewish people. It was thanks to the Japanese who attacked the US naval base at Pearl Harbor that US actually decided to be part of the European war. But it was not that they did it out of the love of Israel or the persecution which was happening to the Jewish people. So I do believe that it was not just the Germans, but I think the Arabs, then the other colonialist powers, they had clearly and openly discriminated the Jewish people, and they held almost the entire world held that all the problems of the world are because of the Jews. But it was actually, divinely provided in a divine providence that, Germans attacked the Russians and everybody attacked each other, and they say, okay, it's not just the Jews who are being killed, we are also being killed, so let's just stop this war. And then in the end, Britishers and the winning powers didn't have the guts to create a home for the Jewish people. Out of the British mandate, it was very, very clear that they would create one Arab state, which would be a Muslim state, and one Jewish state, which would be a home for the Jewish people who have been displaced and stripped of their livelihoods, of their family, their loved ones, everything. They literally lost everything, and in return they wanted a home where they can be free, sovereign, and have a socio-religious and communal life without the fear of anyone looking out to kill them or destroy them or just displace them to wherever they wanted. So Israel has to be a Jewish state, and it was created for the entire idea of providing a safe havens for the Jewish people to flourish in it, and not just liberal Jews or irreligious Jews, but also the religious Jews. A lot of people, especially the Palestinian Arab Muslim people, say that it is our land and there is no religious significance for the Jewish people, and they play double-sided. First they say, oh, the Jewish people, they're not religious, so why do they need Jerusalem? And then the religious Jews come and say, well, we are religious, we want the Kotel, we want the Temple Mount, it is sacred to us, it is religious to us, and we want it. We want to be able to have that freedom that we have synagogues and religious institutions in Jerusalem, and we want to, make Jerusalem the base of our religion, which is actually, as the Torah says. And then they say, oh, no. Torah is heresy. It's not true. So when, at the same breath, when you ask them, but would you say Quran is fake or Christian Bible is fake or all the pagan religious books are fake? Oh, no. Pagan religion books, they are all real, scientific based, science oriented, a lot of Sanatani dharmas and all the, it's a natural, science based religion. And all the European paganism, that's also very science, history, it's all true. Even though, Athena coming straight out of his father's head, having her birth was a miraculous, spectacular, this dramatic narration that, Zeus eats up his wife, and then Athena gets born off the head of Zeus, all armed and, ready as a warrior. And that's why she becomes this goddess of war and success and intellect. So, that's all fine. Quran is the authentic book. Al-Aqsa, if you touch Al-Aqsa, any non-Muslim, especially a Jew, would touch Al-Aqsa or Dome of the Rock, there will be a third world war. Ironically, when the Romans were burning and destroying the Jewish temple, there was no first world war or nothing. Nobody cared. Amnesty didn't exist, so one cannot blame them. But nevertheless, when it comes to Jewish religious rights, Jewish national rights, Jewish rights to livelihood, rights to security and safety, rights of having a social setup, a social fabric which is based on Jewish values, the world is no. And you see, every other nation of the world has entitlement and rights of having a nationality, having a social system, having a religious institutions and religious hubs. Every other nation has all these rights. Every other nation has the rights of security and safety and this freedom of expression of whether their religious identity, whether they're social or ethnic, or whatever that identity, except the Jewish people. Now that's why I, as Mahjabeen Baloch, who is an aspirant convert to Judaism, feel that this is the biggest form of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And today, when we see an Israeli, when a Gentile, especially a Palestinian Arab Muslim, sees an Israeli Jew, he sees an empowered, safe, secure, financially independent, livelihood-wise, relatively secured and at a better place. He feels insecure. And he says this is unfair. When people say Israel cannot be a Jewish state, that means that they don't want to associate a Jew being empowered, a Jew having a state which can secure and safeguard the interest of a Jew. So it's not like it's you don't understand that. They said, okay, call it Israel Palestine, call it Israel a Muslim state, or call it Israel a secular state, but please don't call it Israel the Jewish state, because when it comes to Jews, we feel like Jews are being empowered through this national identity, through this strong and flourishing Jewish society which has stable economic activity going on, and everything, the socially, security wise, economically, when the state of Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, is empowered, we are feeling the Jews are being empowered. So it's not the question that the Gentile world, and I include everyone, Muslims, Jews, pagans, all sorts of pagans, include everyone. The Gentiles cannot tolerate or cannot see an empowered Jew. Whether that empowered Jew exists in Europe, in Arab world, in Asian countries, in Africa, anywhere the issue is this. The core issue which lies in anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is this. The world is not used to an empowered, secure, happy, contented Jew. And that was the reason Nazi says, if we are suffering, if we are doing that, it's all because of the Jews. Because, that whole mentality of Jesus, take my sin. You know how the Gentile world loves Jesus, this one Jew who takes all the sins and all the suffering of the world and hangs on a cross and dies. That is the kind of a Jew that the world expects or likes or loves. They don't want a living Jew, a flourishing Jew, a happy Jew, a healthy Jew, a empowered Jew, a Jew who is contented of himself and he is happy. The world, that is the core of anti-Semitism, in my opinion, and anti-Zionism, and that's what I have seen living in a very, very Muslim world. Very, very Muslim surrounding, very, very Muslim country. So my world is very Muslim. So Pakistan is more than 95% Muslim people. Different sects in Islam, but definitely we are all Muslim. Shia Muslim, Sunni Muslim, Hanafi, Banafi, whatever. So many diverse types of Muslims, but they are all Muslims by and large. And the large portion is, of course, Sunni Muslims. So, Pakistanis should be, in the end, I would like to say, Pakistanis should be the last people on this planet opposing the nation of Israel, and especially opposing the Jewishness of the state of Israel. Pakistani people should be the only people in the world who should say Israel is the Jewish state for the Jewish people. because we got our own country from the same colonialist powers as as a Islamic Republic of Pakistan on the basis of Islam, because we did not wanted a secular society of the Indian, we didn't want it the Indian secular society. We didn't want it the Indian secular constitution. We didn't want it a country where, all the institutions are very a-religious. We wanted religion to be part of our institutions and to protect and flourish that institution. And then how can a Pakistani, and how can me as a Pakistani, oppose of a state of Israel being very, very Jewish, whether socially, religiously, institutionally? It's just unfair. That means I'm also negating my own country. So I'm a very patriotic person, whether I am living in Pakistan or when I convert and make a aliyah, go to Israel, I will also be a very Zionist and very patriotic person. But no, on a serious note, this is a very logical thing. I mean, we have less than 5% of minority. I say fine, Israel can have 10% minority. In that minority mix, there can be Christians and Arabs and Armenians and whatnot, the Druze or what. So not more than 10%. Now, when we see, now Israel already has 20% of the non-Jewish, non-Israeli population, that is Arab, Palestinian, Druze, Armenians, and this and that, all of them. They're living in Israel. And in that 20%, are we adding the Gazan, the Palestinian Arabs who are living in Gaza? Or are we adding the Palestinian Arabs living in West Bank, the 20%? If we are not adding, then just imagine if Israel gives citizenship to all the people living in Gaza and West Bank, where will that percentage go? And then on top of that, 70% of the Jordanian population, 70, and that's on the Jordanian tourism website, okay? So 70% of the total Jordanian population is actually Palestinian refugees. So they will also come to Israel because right of return, and you have equal citizenship. Wow. And then diaspora living in the EU, diaspora living in the US, diaspora living in other Arab countries. Half of the population of the world at least half of the population of the Muslim world is actually Palestinian refugees, which would want the right of return. So where will all these people live? In Adar's home, or in Zakaria Corner's home, or maybe Zakaria Foster is providing housing and jobs and all those facilities. So please, for Christ's sake, I mean, you all people are very educated and you've seen the world. I mean, I haven't seen the world. I'm like nobody who lives in Pakistan. But there has to be a sensibility and sensitivity towards things. Palestine mandate of British included Jordan and Israel both. If you want a one-state solution with equal rights, then include Jordan into that state. Then ask for it. But right after signing the Belfast Declaration in 1970s, in 1920, the Britishers give the favors to Arabs and gives them 5 times bigger country called Jordan. And then says, now another Arab country will be created and another Jewish country will be created out of this tiny little piece of land called Israel. So I mean, and then all the people, including the 70% population of the Jordan, would be relocated into this tiny little state of Palestine. And if you want one state, just outnumber the Jews. I mean, until you become like 1,000 to 1 Jew. 1 Jew and 1,000 Palestinian. Now, just imagine that scenario where 1 Jew and there are like 1,000, Gentile Palestinian Arab countries. How wonderfully and how how much pressure that one Jew would be living his life. He would just ask for, permission for, can I breathe? If you don't mind, and if it doesn't hurt you, please, ladies and gentlemen, let me breathe. I you know, seriously, I just don't understand. As if that whole scenario of what George Floyd uh, created this havoc and chaos and violent episode in the US, that I can't breathe. Here comes this Dr. Zakaria Foster coming with, I can't breathe. This poor man died while a soldier was pushing his, I don't know, pushing his gun or his, I don't know. And he's like, he can't breathe. I mean, where do you come up with these kind of propagandist stories? And then I asked Dr. Zakaria Foster, can you give me the reference who said that? And he gives me bullshit references. And then he said some woman who did a podcast, she quoted it. Now, who is she? Christina Amanpour? I mean, even if Christina Amanpour would report it on CNN, I would have, seriously, I would have not believed her. Because she in herself would be doing a propaganda as like a big media thing. I mean, I would probably ask, was she paid a hefty money to report this? Does she has video footage of this sort of incident happening? I would even question Christina Amanpour. She is the highest paid woman, female journalist, award-winning journalist. And this guy is referring to me a podcast by somebody I have no idea, Diana something. And I looked for her, she was not there. So, I mean, there has to be, I mean, if you're fighting for a cause, at least show least not very serious, because the world is getting very weirder every day by day. I mean, we're getting education and then we're getting more stupider than ever. So anyway, so least amount of seriousness I would expect from a person who is a doctorate of Near Eastern Studies, or maybe just how to love the Palestinian Arab peoples. I think his degree should be named a doctorate in loving unconditionally the Arab people, the Arab culture, the Arab religions. I mean, he would love everything about Arabs, and then he would hate everything about Jews. I mean, okay, fine. You see, I would go to US or any third country, and as a Pakistani Muslim hijabi woman, it's not like I would enter the Bad Dean's office and he would just sprinkle the leaves of rose petals and oh my god, Benjamin, I was just waiting to convert you. What took you so long? Obviously, I would go through a lot of negativity from the Jewish communities. Obviously, I would be faced a lot of biasness and discrimination because of my profile. And I'm a sensible, highly educated person who knows that, okay, if I go to a Bedin or a rabbi, he has 10 other things going on. And here comes this Pakistani Muslim lady who says, I want to convert. And obviously you would say, no, you go, think about it, we are this, we are that. So, it's not like negative things. I don't come across negative things. Or I don't see that there are some discriminatory or biased things in a religious text or context. But the thing is, how do you see this? First of all, when you read something you find offensive, you see, why does a holy book says like this? Like I said, first be a very sensitive, very bias. I mean, don't be partial. Don't be biased. Read the religious text with utmost maturity, sensitivity, and try to understand and question why things are written the way they are. And then gradually understand that. So if I go and I feel like, oh, the Bedouin is not very warm and welcoming towards me, instead of judging the entire Jewish population and the entire country of Israel, I would sit back and say, was my timing to go to the Bedouin was correct? Was my case that I put in front of the bed thing, and how I explained why I want to convert, and what was that up to the mark? I need to see things in his perspective also, because he's a Bedouin who's responsible that this convert has a purpose in Judaism. And I've said in my previous videos, it's not out of racism and hate and discrimination that the rabbis and the Bedouins discourage people to, come into the covenant and convert. It's a very sensitive matter. They would be questioned that why did they choose one person to come into this covenant, come into this, because there is a certain responsibility which Hashem exclusively gave to the Jewish people, not because they were perfect, not because they were special. It is just this this is a particular responsibility, and this I gave it to the Jews. Now, it's not like that you go on, or Jews go on and hand over their responsibility to other people. That's a sin. God would say, I give that responsibility to you. Gentiles have other responsibilities. I will ask them, question them, or whatever. That's a different thing. I have this responsibility. And you don't go on giving out this responsibility to other people unless somebody really wants it, or I put in their hearts and put in your heart to bring that person into the covenant. And then also the person who is converting has to see what is your purpose, why do you want to do this. So obviously one has to be sensitive towards yourself, that what you're feeling and what's going on in your system, but also see what's going on in the other person. So I mean, God knows, I don't know the life history or story of, say, Dr. Dr. Zachariah Foster or Zachariah Corner or other. I don't know. I mean, I would say they are doing all this out of good intentions, out of love, out of peace. I want to believe that. But even then, if they're doing that, it does not give them a right that if they are liberals and if they are a-religious, they can speak for people who are religious, who are Jewish, who are practicing Jewish, and for them Judaism means something. I mean, have an opinion. I would never discourage Zachariah Corner or Zachariah Foster or other to have an opinion on anything. Every human being is entitled to have an opinion and has the freedom to be religious or irreligious. But when you say that Palestinian Arab Muslims have every right to be religious, Palestinian Arab Christians have all the rights to be religious, but excuse me, the Israeli Jewish people do not have should not have religious aspirations, shouldn't be religious. Their religiosity is unacceptable. So the religiosity of Christians in Jerusalem, acceptable. The religiosity of the Muslim people in Jerusalem, acceptable. Even the religiosity of the pagan Romans in the Hellenistic period, in the Hellenistic emancipation, is all acceptable, but not the Jewish people. So that's the real apartheid which has been happening in the state of Israel, not just now, but I think ever since Abraham set foot on that land. So, this is something that we need to see, because Jewish people as a nation, they cannot be homeless, they cannot all be a-religious and liberal and, communist or secular or anything. If you want to be secular, okay, speak for yourself. I don't consider Judaism this. I'm a secular person, so I see things like that. But people who are religious also have some entitlement. And at the same time, as a secular, as a liberal person, when you are accepting the religious rights of Muslim Palestinians, who gave, how dare you are saying that the Jews cannot have religious rights in the same land? Just because you're not religious and you are liberal and you are secular, so people should start thinking like you. So is that actually the liberalism that you talk about? And the, I'm sorry, it's not. So yeah, I mean, I have personally, I have nothing. I literally have a crush on Zakaria Corner, and I have a huge amount of respect for Dr. Zakaria Foster. Other, whatever he is doing, I might disagree with him, but he is doing a wonderful job at Sola. And it's good to debate. It's good to talk about, even if sometimes angers me or frustrates me or I get offended. Even then, it is a high time that we discuss these difficult matters and sort them also. But I just want that people need to be fair when it comes to, when you're accepting one community's rights, you should be sensitive towards the other community's rights. It's not fair that Arabs get two states out of the British Mandate while Jews get only one. It's not fair that Arab Christians and Arab Muslims' religious rights are protected and safeguarded and respected, and on the other hand, the Jewish religious rights are ignored, not just ignored, discouraged. And not just discouraged by force. I almost had a heart attack when Zakaria Corner said that I was on a fist fight, and I was like, if the situation would, I mean, literally, this is unacceptable. This is completely unacceptable. And I think this is my view, and I totally reject the Amnesty International's report that Israel is an apartheid state if it calls itself a Jewish state of Israel. I think Israel is a Jewish state of Israel, and it is a Jewish home with, of course, having differential rights for non-Jewish residents and citizens. And I think they should be aware of it, that why this nation was created and built and what goes into that. I mean, Jewish people have built this nation kibbutz by kibbutz, from scratch, from people who have lost their family, entire families, their livelihoods, everything. They built this nation with their hands and I mean, they built it out of scratch. And we're not talking about the investment that the Rothschild family had invested in Israel way later, and they only invested in those isolated bubble cities and areas where they know that our investment would be secured. It was the real people who lost their families and their loved ones and their businesses and their livelihoods and their whole lives, and they had no other place to go but to come to Israel and build a nation and forget about their griefs and their loss and build a society where, I mean, the whole idea of kibbutz, building a kibbutz, where you don't own anything, you just help in building a community, in itself shows the resilience, the dedication of the Jewish people in building this land. And now some young people who are so naive and good looking and nice, and they all see this all La La Land Bollywood carnival saga, lovey-dovey love song, and they can share the land with the Palestinians. Why would they share the land with Palestinians? Palestinian didn't build Israel. They didn't even fucking build Jordan. I mean, look at Jordan. Jordan was created in 1920. Israel declared independence in 1948. Look at that sheer difference between where Israel is now and where is Jordan. So I mean, literally, it's. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know where these Arab Palestinians get this confidence to ask the Israelis, we want equal rights. Why would you want equal rights when you didn't do anything for the nation? They didn't do anything for the Jewish Israeli nation. They didn't build the Jewish Israeli nation. Why should they have rights? It's just plain unfair. That's it. That's real apartheid. When you have done nothing for the land, nothing for the, you would have built nothing, and then you want rights. It's ridiculous. It's like America, Americans built America, and now Russians say we want your country. I mean, seriously, we want your country because you were also immigrants. Now we make us immigrants and then give us equal rights. And the Americans were, well, we built this country from scratch. You didn't. This is our land now. So there has to be a little bit of sensitivity which needs to go into these dialogues. And please, if you are being so sensitive towards other people's misery and their bad, think about the people who are on your side. I mean, just because they are on your side or just because you're a Jew, you cannot defend a Jew. I don't understand this ideology. I mean, I'm not even a Jew. I haven't even converted yet. I'm defending the Jewish rights to the land because it's just the just thing. And they have worked hard. Israelis have worked hard to build that nation, and they have foremost rights for that land as compared to people who have continuously tried to destroy this society, destroy this nation. And they have teamed us. The surrounding Arab relatives of the Palestinian Arab relatives have fought wars for this, purpose to get these Palestinian Arabs this land. And now all of a sudden they want equal rights. So this is what I want to have. I have so much to say and I have controlled a lot of emotion, and I waited that my emotions should just settle down. I was really angry. The debate was very good, but the thing is, I just wanted to say this, and I hope if I have offended a few people, I think that was intentional. And thank you very much.